The movie starts by showing an island in Montreal where a biotech company is hired to maintain a golf club field, and its employees use a unique type of fertilizer that melts the frozen winter ice, keeping the grass fresh and green so that the wealthy can enjoy playing golf all year round. The following morning, we see a security guard named Dan stocking up on provisions at his abode. Dan makes it a routine to tune into a daily broadcast alerting its audience about sudden crises that might arise unexpectedly, and he was preparing himself to face those unforeseen dangers. That night, he was practicing making fire without matches by using the powder from his shotgun shells, which leads to a small explosion and results in him burning one of his eyebrows. The scene then shifts to show Dan's daughter, Patricia, who works as a helper at the golf club, where the biotech company's CEO, Michelle, informs a wealthy couple how excellently their fertilizer is working on the grass, enhancing their playing experience. The real wonder was happening underground, where the fertilizer was spreading vastly and contaminating the water supply of the entire town. In the next scene, an actor named Jokes is shown going shopping for his home after drinking a glass of water from the studio tap. The fruits and vegetables in the store were washed with the same tap water, which was also used to prevent them from drying out. Suddenly, he starts to feel dizzy. For a while, he ignores it. When he reaches home, he notices his teeth turning green and hears a strange noise in his stomach. By the time he goes to the bathroom looking for his wife, he is completely turned into a zombie. He begins to bite and eat his wife's flesh, and as he does so, she turns into a zombie as well. Soon, Jocks joins her in the tub, and both of their green eyes begin to blur. Meanwhile, at the golf club, Michelle and the couple head towards the main building and are shocked to see that it was deserted. Suddenly, a man comes running, and he screams out that people are falling ill. Therefore, they should also escape from there. Then they see a lot of employees chasing after him. All of them had turned into zombies. At that moment, they also spot a dog. Seeing the dog, the wife calls it to her, but it jumps on her furiously and bites her neck. Seeing this, her husband and Michelle throw the dog away. Just then, they see other zombies running from that place. The woman starts turning into a zombie while both men quickly go inside the building and lock the door. But the dog quietly slips inside the building and bites the husband's leg. So they lock him in a separate room. By then, all the zombies gather at the door and start knocking loudly. Meanwhile, the husband also turns into a zombie and starts chasing Michelle, who hides in the kitchen with a knife in hand. In the next scene, Dan is shown, who gets a call from an old lady saying that her neighbors are making a lot of noise and are fighting with each other. When he goes there and rings the doorbell, his neighbors, who had turned into zombies, come out. Then the old lady also turns into a zombie and starts chasing Dan. Dan quickly hides inside a car. He calls for help, but no one comes. Seeing zombies sprinting through the streets, Dan gets worried about his daughter Patricia. He tries calling her, but Patricia, who is running from a zombie, cannot answer, heightening Dan's concern. So Dan leaves the company car and takes his own, armed, to look for his daughter. In the next scene, I noticed a boy getting ready to prepare milk for his little sister Annie, intending to use tap water. His mother suggests using bottled water. He has never consumed tap water himself. Whenever he was in need of a drink, he would opt for soda or a different beverage. Shortly after, his mother experiences a spell of dizziness, which André thinks may be due to her working too hard. After a while, she transforms into a zombie and starts pursuing André, aiming to assault him. In terror, André dashes outside, and while making his escape, he trips and tumbles, yet as she is about to grasp André, Dan intervenes by crashing into her with his vehicle. She gets injured from it. Seeing his mother in such a condition, André goes to save her, but Dane stops him, saying this is not the time to get emotional. It's time to save our lives. He tells him to hide in their house and leaves the place. Just then, more zombies start to arrive. André couldn't leave his mother there, so he drags her by the leg into the house. After closing all the doors of the house, he calls the police for help, only to receive a recorded message stating that the entire island is quarantined. The next scene shows the bridge that connected the island to the main city. Some police officers were standing there. They had closed the bridge so that no outsider could enter and no insider could leave. The scene shifts and André's mother attempts to attack his younger sister Annie, but André drags her into the bathroom and locks her in, where she notices water dripping from the shower and crawls into the tub. Meanwhile, Annie keeps crying incessantly, attracting many zombies outside the door. André covers her with a pillow, blanket, and a plastic cover. so that their voices may not be heard outside. The zombies soon retreat. After a while, Andrea's cat paddle door swings back, allowing her to re-enter the house, and a zombie sneaks in behind her, nearly grabbing her. But just as Andrea leaves the house, the zombie freezes. As soon as Andrea returns with a golf club, the zombie hides. Next, we see Patricia hiding in a garage to avoid the zombies and calling her dad Dan for help. Dan soon arrives and finds that the area outside the garage is teeming with zombies. He pulls out his knife, kills some zombies, and knocks others to the ground. Then he heads inside. At the same moment, the police on the bridge move away because the military starts bombing the zombie-affected area, causing a power outage across the whole town. The next morning, when Annie's nanny arrives at the bridge for work, she finds it destroyed. Meanwhile, Andrea starts filming the zombies from her home's window. At the same time, a press conference is being broadcast on the net. When the defense minister tells the people that we have destroyed the bridge for the safety of the island and the situation is under control, then the battery of Andre's phone goes down. After this, he goes inside to check on his mother and sees that her mother is covered with green color chip material. Suddenly, his mother starts attacking Anne. Then André starts making noise to divert his attention and starts shaking his favorite vegetable in front of him, attracting his mother to run after him. In doing so, they both reach the living room where their mother accidentally. The tent collides and the TV falls on top of them, killing them. With a sad heart, Andra brings his mother back inside the bathroom and sees that grass has started growing on her wounds. Then he picked up his phone, but that phone was also broken. Andra then takes a staircase and looks out the front door where a lot of zombies were standing, as if they were waiting for him to come out. Now he was also tired of staying inside the house, so he put Anne in a baby career. He takes the round stick and opens the door of the house. Jeez. Zombies, seeing the cat inside the house, enter to catch it, and Andra, seeing a clear path, immediately runs away from there. He runs towards the grocery store with the zombies chasing him, but all doors are closed and he falls to the zombies. Suddenly, a door opens and Dane pulls him inside. Dane had set up camp there since the previous day, so he had also made a space for camping. However, he had no concrete plan to deal with the situation. All the boards had already left from there, and crossing the water meant directly inviting a feast. In the next scene, Andra goes to see his sister Anne. Then Anne spots a zombie locked inside a door, none other than Patricia. Dane hoped that someone would cure her later, so he had locked her up. Meanwhile, at the golf club, Michelle sanitizes all the doors. After that, he calls his company folks, who tell him that experts are coming to help, but he must also follow the company's rules. Then a zombie dog starts barking at him, which he shoves away with a kick. It is revealed here that he had also murdered a friend. Meanwhile, Dan fails to start a fire in the store. Then Andra uses a lighter to ignite the blaze. While eating, they listen to Dan's favorite radio show which blames terrorists for the zombie attacks. The host interviews the defense minister, who evasively answers questions, making the host suspect that the government might sacrifice lives to deal with the zombie threat. Then Dan calls the radio station to inform them about some people. Someone requires assistance. The host acknowledges that the rest of the planet is reluctant for the infection to propagate. Hence, he initially assembles detailed data about their location and activities. Irritated by his inane chatter, Dan disconnects the call. Subsequently, Dan and Andra strive to unearth the cause of the infection, aiming to create a vaccine. Dan ultimately deduces that the infection transmits through water, given that each person who got sick had consumed tap water, whereas Dan himself, in his delirium, avoided drinking from the tap. As he consistently feared that terrorists could contaminate the water, he took precautions. Soon thereafter, they exited the trio of shops. With them, they escorted Patricia, her head encased in a cage to prevent any biting. On the exterior, they encountered several zombies coated in a viscous green material. Out of nowhere, a small child lunged at Dan, who repelled her, yet lacked the resolve to inflict harm. In time, they arrived at Dan's vehicle, and just before the zombies could mount an assault, they get into the car and drive away. Meanwhile, the biotech company sends two twins with weapons to the golf club, who were efficiently killing every zombie they encountered. Inside the club, Michelle was burning all the documents related to the deal, ensuring there was no evidence that the zombie infection had started because of their fertilizer. In the end, Michelle keeps a small sample of the fertilizer. Just as the twins reach him, Michelle takes the suitcase from one of them. containing numerous spare shells loaded with a cure for infections, capable of eradicating the infection within 24 hours. As he picks up one of the shells, both twins grab him, forcibly insert the sample into his mouth, and then drag his unconscious body away after rendering him unconscious. The shell slips from Michelle's hand and falls to the ground. In the next scene, we see all 3 survivors heading towards the water plant by car. They leave Annie in the car to prevent her cries from attracting others. However, leaving, the child on the tracks was not right, so they decide to take her with them. They enter the building where a zombie infested with grass on its body had entered the water tank. Patricia realizes this and runs towards it, prompting the others to chase after her. Upon reaching the pool, she immediately jumps in. Dunn also jumps in to save her, and just then, the zombie surfaces and starts attacking Dunn. Dunn holds Patricia in front of him, which makes the zombie retreat. As André draws near and inspects the scene, he notices that zombies do not harm one another. However, his voice catches the attention of a zombie, initiating a pursuit. André bolts for the exit, with an increasing number of zombies on his tail. Simultaneously, Dan strives to rescue Patricia from the aquatic grasp, resulting in his arm's detachment. Amidst the chaos, André manages to enter a vehicle during his escape, and at that moment, Dan emerges as well. Orisa uses a shield so that the zombies stay away. After sitting in the car, Dan hears some noises and then realizes that Patricia's phone was still with her. He unlocks the phone using her severed arm and then realizes that the grass had grown on his injuries on the track. He is surprised to see grass in winter, but then remembers that an experiment had been conducted at the golf club and that this might be the result of that, not terrorism. In the golf club, the twins start breaking all the capsules on the club's grass so that no proof remains. Just then, Dan's car arrives there and they notice the strange smoke. He starts recording everything after taking out his phone. They head towards the front door but find it locked. Then Dan looks for another way in. He climbs onto the roof, enters from there, and opens the door for the others to come in. He locks Patricia in a storage room while arranging a place for Annie to sleep with the help of Andre's chairs. Later, Dan and Andre search the entire building. That's when they see a dog, still alive, with grass growing all over its body. Suddenly, Dan starts feeling dizzy. Annie starts crying. Andre runs to quiet her down, only to find her missing from her bed. Meanwhile, Andre searches for his sister. On the other side, Dan heads towards a dark corridor where bombs were scattered on the floor, which could blow up the building. Even though his health was deteriorating, he did not lose courage and reached the room where all bombs were connected to timers. By then, Dan had become very weak. Therefore, feeling dizzy, he collapses and has trouble getting up. Then, with a broken hand, he manages to turn off the timer from the railroad tracks. Just then, her eyes start changing to green. Outside, the twins observe the building still intact after some time and choose to enter. Discovering Annie in the kitchen, they attempt to give her fertilizer but depart soon after. Meanwhile, André, seeking his sister, finds Michelle morphed into a zombie. He quickly retreats, locates his sister, and tries to leave, only to be confronted by the twins. As one attempts to silence Annie with fertilizer, she turns undead and bites his hand, making the fertilizer drop. As Annie transforms into a zombie, biting the twin and causing the fertilizer to slip from his grasp. At that moment, Dan engages the other twin in combat. Amidst the chaos, André accidentally crushes a fallen healing capsule with his foot, releasing smoke that starts reversing Annie and Dan's zombification. Following the incident, Dan begins to chase after André, not yet fully cured. And soon both of them running make it into the kitchen. And just as Dane was about to bite André, he suddenly becomes aware of Annie's presence and lets him go. At that moment, both twins pull out their guns and kill each other, not wanting to turn into zombies. In the next scene, André takes out an old phone from Dan's jacket and calls Patricia's phone, finding it by the sound of the ringing, and begins to record a video. He narrates about all the events that have taken place and then uploads the video on the internet asking for help. Afterward, he guides Dane to his daughter's room. Meanwhile, as soon as Andre's video reaches the news channels, the government sends the military to clean up the area. Soldiers fire at every zombie they encounter on the way. Then André also emerges from the building, raising his hands asking for help, carrying Patricia's broken arm which could help in making a vaccine. Suddenly, another survivor reaches the soldiers who then shoot him. Seeing this, André realizes that the soldiers were not there to save the survivors, but to kill everyone and clean the area. By that time, Annie had recovered, hence André escapes and hides from there. Meanwhile, inside the golf club, Dan had also recovered, but then soldiers burst into the building, burning and killing both him and Patricia. In the next scene, the defense minister is shown giving a speech on TV, assuring the public that the situation is under control and the infection has been eradicated. Therefore, there is no need for panic. Just then, he drinks water from a mug bearing the biotech company's logo, implicating his involvement in the affair. In an attempt to save his life, he wanders here and there, encountering the dead bodies of many survivors killed by the soldiers along the way. Suddenly, he spots a boat on the river which Anne's maid had brought. It was filled with several volunteers, who managed to rescue both André and Anne. As they leave the island, André realizes that Patricia's arm is now useless. Thus he throws it into the water where a fish bites it and instantly turns into a zombie. With that, the movie comes to an end here.